Welcome to the Middle Ground. I'm Ohio Divided. He's Stormin Norman, and we are back for another Ohio Packed episode. The NBA is rolling, and Ohio State basketball tips off on Monday against IU Indy. This is the year Jake Diebler has to get back to the March Madness. The question is, can he actually do it? The Bengals are absolutely fucking atrocious, just flat out awful, especially on defense. Tonight, we're having a tough conversation. What's really wrong in Cincinnati? Is Zac Taylor the full problem? No, but he's definitely not part of the solution either. And over in Cleveland, things aren't much prettier. Dillon Gabriel is clearly not the guy for the future, and Myles Garrett is pissed, and rightfully so. The organization has made him promises that sure don't look like they're being kept. And finally, the one team that is keeping us sane over here in the middle ground, the Ohio State Buckeyes. Before the season, we thought this matchup with Penn State could be number 1 versus number 2. It's not, but it's still a big one for the grand scheme of the season. The question now, if Ryan Day gets a chance, does he try to run it up on Jim Knowles with how he left and how he departed Ohio State after the national championship? We've got a lot to unpack, so let's get into it. Good evening, Norm.
Howdy, how we doing?
Oh, just another week, grinding it out at work, trying to have some fun at night, get another episode in, and do it all over again tomorrow.
Well, let's ride. Let's get into it.
Hell yeah. So I wanted to get, as we kind of go through these, what happened over the weekend, and especially for college football's sake, I kind of want to focus more so on the teams that I see as a threat to Ohio State. When I say a threat to Ohio State, I mean a threat to them not going back-to-back. There's one team on here that I didn't include, and that was Notre Dame, and we've talked about them a little bit. I think that they're definitely a team that can be interesting, just with Love, Price, CJ Carr, but they were also on a bye this past weekend, so not a whole lot to be said about them. So let's start with the Indiana Hoosiers. I think they were favored by about 25.5. A lot of people felt pretty good about the Hoosiers, or I should say pretty good about the Bruins coming on a three-game winning streak. I even felt pretty good about that 25.5. I did not bet it, but if I was going to bet it, I probably would have taken UCLA. But thankfully, I didn't. Biggest thing that stuck out to me on Saturday was, yes, Indiana dominated, but really where UCLA has seen a lot of success over their 3-game winning streak was on the ground running the ball. I think they averaged somewhere around 270, 280 yards per game rushing, and that was good for 11th in the entire FBS over that 3-week span. Indiana held them to just 88. It's time to – we've been saying it for a couple weeks now. We think this Indiana team's pretty good, but I think it's even beyond pretty good at this point. When you talk about a team that can compete with Ohio State at that level, a team that is fundamentally sound as well coached, Indiana has to be at the top of that list. What were your thoughts from the weekend of Indiana, Norm?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of that game, I think pretty much the first drive, Maliva interception, first drive, pretty much set the tone for what Indiana was about to do. I think the thing about Indiana is I think most people were pretty hip to what their offense was going to be this year. Kind of similar to last year's, solid, going to produce a lot of points. This year, it's probably taking a look like a next step on being an elite offense. But I think the thing that, makes them complete is they have a really good defense. I'm not sure many people were really, that wasn't on people's radars coming into this year. I don't really feel like, but I feel like they've kind of been proving this year that the defense is just as well, probably not just as good as the offense, but it's going to win them some games and keep them in some games. So because as you look at it, that Illinois game, I know that they beat them down, but, I feel like the part that we've talked about with Illinois is their offense is good. They hold them to 10. At Iowa, hard to say. I mean, obviously 15 to Iowa, that's Iowa, whatever. You go into Oregon, hold them to 20. That's pretty big. Michigan State, they've had some big scoring games. I know that's been pretty inconsistent. Holding them to 13, and then obviously UCLA, who'd been hot, holding them to 6. So it's not on Ohio State's defensive level, obviously, that with the way we've been talking about them, but I feel like they're one of the top defenses in college football. And I think that's something that we didn't really expect coming to this year. And I think that's why the further we're going along, it's the more I'm respecting Indiana's just their defense isn't really putting out stinkers. And I think that was the place where I was looking at where it just felt like coming to the season where you could kind of beat Indiana at. But if their defense is legit and their offense, with Mendoza leading it, like they're pretty scary. I mean, they're a legit team, and I think this week was just another kind of stamp on that. I mean, I know it's UCLA, and I mean I know what they've been this year, but I think just how easy they made it look. That's what elite teams do. We've been seeing Ohio State do that this year, and the fact that Indiana's doing it too. I mean, you just gotta give them respect for what they're doing.
I think what's surprising too is a lot of people thought last year was maybe just a splash in the frying pan. Curt Cignetti came in, had some early success, so they were ranked right around, I don't know, that 20 to 25 in the preseason poll, and they've done nothing but dominate up until this point. You listen to some of the football heads that are out there, like Nick Saban, Urban Meyer. Now, whenever they talk about how fundamental this team is, especially on the defensive side, they talk about how gap sound they are. They talk about how good of a tackling team they are, how every single guy on that unit is doing their job. I mean, they're doing it with a bunch of 3- and 4-star guys. They don't have the talent that a lot of other schools like Ohio State, like your top-tier schools like Oregon, like Bama, teams like that. They don't really have that level of talent. So that just goes a long way into not only what Curt Cignetti's done, but in football, it's as important as any sport of really just trying to build your staff around them and getting the kids in the spot to be successful. And when you see the outputs that they're putting on the field with, again, just the talent that they have on that roster, it is really, 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 really impressive. And if they can keep it up, Indiana's shown they can throw around some money. So those recruits could slowly start to turn into more 4- and 5-star recruits if Cignetti kind of stays consistent, which it looks like he's not going to be going anywhere anytime soon. On to the next game, another team that I think is a little bit of a threat to Ohio State, Oregon. A little bit of a weird game this past week. I think that Dante Moore went out in the second half for a little bit, so only won 21-7 against a really, really, really bad Wisconsin team, a team that obviously isn't really paying for much of anything at this point. The only thing they're probably playing for is trying to keep Luke Fickell's job. I watched bits and pieces of this game. I got in live, took a live bet of, I think, Oregon like minus 17.5 whenever it was tied late in the first half there. But yeah, I mean, clearly they didn't cover the spread. They didn't even come close to what the game spread was. I don't know if you have a whole lot on Oregon from this week. I was watching a couple other games at the same time, so I wasn't able to sit down and watch them. But just looking on the surface of the final score, a little bit shocking just from what we've seen from Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think Wisconsin even kind of showed flashes in the Ohio State game that their defense is still like fairly solid. They just have a little
They've
bit of
got a
Brown
top
syndrome. I mean,
15,
their
top
offense
20
is awful.
rush defense out there. Like they're not completely dog shit on that side.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's a big reason why this game was close. I mean, like I said, I mean they have a competent defense. Obviously, there's holes, in general, but I mean, when you're comparing it to the offense, I think that's almost their biggest hole on defense is their offense. Like I was saying, it's kind of similar to the Brown situation. Like as the game wears down, those holes start to form, and then that's when you're starting to get beat. Because it really felt like Ohio State was kind of moving the ball, but they weren't kind of stepping on any throats until that second half was really when it got unleashed and just started getting ugly. This week it didn't really get to the second half ugliness, but the game didn't really feel in doubt. It was always close. I was kind of drive watching, not actually watching the game. But it never really felt like Oregon was in trouble. So, I mean, it's one of those games. It's one of the random conference away games where it's a little close. I'm not going to read into it for Oregon. Honestly, the only thing I'm reading into for Oregon is, Dante Moore, potential QB prospect. I got my eyes on all those. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, no, I mean, other than that, nothing really. Like, I don't think this is a death wish for Oregon by any means. So.
And then on to the next team, Texas A&M. It was a team that I was kind of hesitant on up until this point. I didn't really know exactly who they were. I have a lot of respect for Notre Dame. I think that Notre Dame's extremely talented and can play with the best of college football. So it was impressive to see them go into South Bend, get a win early. But at that point in the year, I didn't really, and I'm sure a lot of other people didn't really have a ton of confidence in Notre Dame's defense. So I wanted to pump the brakes a little bit to talk about them and see them go into a Death Valley and get a win against a good team. And boy, did they just get a win. They scored 49 points, won by about 20, 30 points, whatever it ended up as. They sent Brian Kelly packing. We talked about this. We'll get into it a little bit later here as we get through the hot topics. We talked about Brian Kelly coaching for his job this past Saturday, and never in a million years did I think in any world would a LSU team with the guys that they have on in that locker room get blown out the way that they did. The biggest thing that stuck out to me is that Texas A&M defensive line is nasty, and I know a lot of people will say LSU's offensive line's not very good, which they haven't been. They've struggled this year up until this point. But, I mean, they had it wasn't just one or two guys. Like, it was consistently 3, 4, 5 guys getting after the quarterback. And really, they took out LSU's quarterbacks blanking on me right now. But they took him out right at the end of the game. They took Nussmeier out right at the end of the game because he was getting so bullied and getting knocked around so much. So I think it's time to talk about Texas A&M. I think that they're an actual threat. I think they got some dudes on that defense that can cause some issues for Ohio State as we get into the playoff.
Yeah, no, I think this was kind of that game that was kind of the prove it game that I was looking for. I think almost the fact that this game wasn't a blowout right away. I mean, LSU. There was kind of some fluky things happen in the first half, but LSU comes out, they're leading at half. But, Texas A&M just comes out hair on fire and just dominates from the kickoff in the second half. And I think that kind of proved all we needed to see on Brian Kelly, and that's why we're seeing him fired literally that night. There was always talk about Ohio State paid for their national championship last year, whatever, $20 million. LSU also spent $20 million this year. Texas Tech has spent, a lot of money. Texas Tech, they look like a good team. LSU, they've got 3 losses and will not be making the playoff. You have to set up the team to win. And I think at the end of the day, it's set up to. So the fact that, a guy that has the pedigree or the thought of pedigree of Brian Kelly, there's clearly something missing. And I feel like that's when we started seeing some of the things that kind of got kept under wraps, while he was at LSU. And then people are starting to flock to be like, yeah, no, this guy did not believe in LSU. He did not give a fuck. He was on his retirement tour. This guy wasn't hiring his own coaches. He was firing coaches that he was told that he was going to keep. Just a lot of Brian Kelly's an asshole, which we already knew, but just kind of the confirmations of those things. But honestly, perfect. I'm happy he's fired. Honestly, I hope he goes to Penn State so we can kick his ass some more. Because he just seems like the absolute shithead guy, and I'd be perfectly fine with him going somewhere where I can beat his ass a lot.
Yep.
So yeah, LSU, we'll see. I think honestly, there's an element of me is because Nussmeier made some throws. I think there's something there. I think he can come back another year. So I feel like he's a perfect candidate to come back, and we may be seeing him in the 2027 draft. Him and Arch Manning would be the top 2 that come to mind that stay and develop a little bit more, get more playing time in big games and whatnot, and see if they can kind of figure out some of these, things that they're fucking up at this point. But yeah, no, at the end of the day, it's about Texas A&M. They seem real. I'll believe in it. They've been a team that's recruited well always. They did well in the transfer portal this year. We look at that defensive line. There's a lot of studs there. I think the receiving core is, kind of more put together than what it had been. I think that comes from the transfer portal. They were getting some, highly touted recruits, but a lot of those guys were end up leaving. The funny part about A&M was they recruited so well to have the other teams recruit their players from them. So now we're seeing them, kind of settle in with some guys from whether it's transfer portal, recruit stand, whatever. And I think Reed looks to be a legit quarterback too.
Yeah.
There are some big plays and big throws he made that, I think kind of opened my eyes a little bit. I was, a little up in the air with how I believed in him. And I think going into Death Valley at night, like a lot of the reasons why I thought LSU would kind of win this game were reasons why I kind of come away thinking Texas A&M's legit. Like Death Valley is a very tough place to play. That's been noted by people in the SEC for many, many years, whether they've had a good team. And whether we think what we want, LSU's a decent team this year, regardless of, the Brian Kelly shit. But yeah, just the absolute beatdown that they ended up putting on LSU makes me believe in them wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I find it funny. You mentioned the $20 million roster with LSU and like Texas Tech and things like that. Well, Texas is reportedly spending $40 million, and I think it's fair to mention they've been an absolute shit show this year. So I always found it kind of funny when people were bringing up like Ohio State went out and spent $20 million on their roster. They bought their roster. It goes to prove money isn't going to solve all your issues. You got to have the right guys with the right culture and the right coaches in the seats. Just because you have a big budget and you can go get some guys out of the transfer portal, that doesn't ultimately equate to wins and championships. So see some guys out there trying to follow Ohio State's method of last year and not going as well as what they thought it would be. And the last team I wanted to get to, Alabama, a team that I think they've got some offensive firepower, at least in the passing game. Still have some questions a little bit, for one, on their defense, and then two, their ability to run the ball. I think that they ended up averaging something like 3.5 yards per carry, but 3 of those carries were long runs that kind of inflated that number by a wide receiver that they have. But Jam Miller only averaging 2.6 yards per carry. South Carolina hasn't been good this year. They're 3-5 for a reason. Obviously, we kind of noted this one last week. This is going to be an interesting one, a potential upset that could be looming here. Bama ended up figuring it out in the end. Ty Simpson stepped up at the end there and made the throws and made things happen when they really needed to. But when I just consider like talent and like firepower, Bama's a team that you have to worry about. They have dudes over there, Williams, Bernard. They got guys that can make plays and probably give our secondary that's also talented some fits. But I'm not necessarily too crazy worried about them. I think as long as you can kind of keep those receivers under control and get after Ty Simpson a little bit, I don't think the defense is good enough to keep him in the game, and I don't think that they're going to ever have any kind of sustained running attack to kind of keep themselves from being one-dimensional. I think they're ultimately going to have to throw the ball 40 times at least if they get into a matchup with Ohio State, and I think that favors Ohio State ultimately in the end. Norm, your thoughts on Bama, and then if you're going to rank these 5 teams, and if there's anybody else out there that you think needs to be made note of as a potential threat to Ohio State, bring them up as well. But if you're going to rank these teams 1 through 5, Indiana, Oregon, Texas A&M, Bama, and then Notre Dame, 1 being the team that you're most worried about, 5 being the team you're least worried about, what are your thoughts on Bama, and where would you rank those 5 teams?
Yeah, so I think right now I'll start with least worried. We'll go with 5. I think least worried, I'm leaning Oregon right now. I think the Indiana game kind of exposed some things. Dante Moore, how elite is he? I think he has to be elite to beat Ohio State. We'll see if that's if he can put that out at a consistent level. I think their defense is good, but is it good enough to slow down Ohio State? So Oregon's probably my number 5. 4, I think I'm going to go Notre Dame at 4. I think a part of it is they still got to make it. which, if they run the table, most likely they're in. We've talked about that. But there's an element of them not even making it. There's teams that they need to lose to get in. I think sometimes the fall of Notre Dame and maybe they start figuring it out. I feel like they've started to recently, and especially the USC game, is like just continually press the Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Prince button, or Price button, and I think once they finally just do that and just kind of unleash the offense, I think that'll be there. I haven't seen it consistently enough for them yet, so I'm going to put them at 4. 3, I'm going to go Bama. I think it was closer here. I go Bama 3 just because I think Bama from a skill position, they can cause more headaches than Notre Dame can. I think Notre Dame running backs, like, obviously are very scary, but I think just from the vertical threats that Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard are, plus, Ty Simpson, I kind of view it as Ty Simpson, I think, is better than CJ Carr, and we both hyped up CJ Carr. I think he is good. And then I think from the and then I kind of give it a wash with the receivers and running backs for the big playability. It's just harder for running backs to make bigger plays. Obviously, they're capable in the pass game too, so that that it can be a little tricky with that. But I think the Alabama receivers scare me just a little bit more, and I think it's just kind of just from a little bit of a personnel thing. I think Ohio State's front seven's been dominant. Obviously, secondary has also been very good, but I just think Ryan Williams is elite. I think him and Jeremiah Level are similar levels, and then I'm probably giving Jeremy Bernard a little bit of an edge over Darian Price. 2, this is where it's interesting. I think I'm gonna go A&M at 2. It's kind of a coin flip for me here. I think A&M is excellent. I give Indiana the edge at 1 more so because of I believe in Mendoza. I think Mendoza's the number 1 overall pick, or if he's not, I think he's the top quarterback in the draft at this point. And with that, I think just the familiarity, obviously, it was 1 regular season game last year, but just kind of there's an element of when you're in the conference, you kind of got a feel for another team. And, Indiana, when they weren't great, I remember a week 1, 2 years ago where Indiana battled the hell out of us. There was no reason for it to be a game. And, they battled. So it's like, if we find ourselves in a situation where, it's Indiana, there's going to be more pressure on us to beat Indiana than Texas A&M, if that makes any sense at all. Just from the conference factors of it, there could also be a rematch situation. We beat them in the Big Ten championship, play them in the playoff, or lose to them in the Big Ten championship, could play them in the playoff. So I just think they cause more risk just from a familiarity standpoint, that I'm going to give them the edge over A&M. Both are scary in kind of similar ways. I think A&M's kind of showed that they're a little bit more electric than I had even thought on offense. I would say they're probably a little bit better on defense, but for me, I think if someone's going to beat us, they need that elite offense because our defense is so good. So I'm going to give Indiana the slight edge for my 1 through 5.
Yeah, I think I honestly probably would have ranked them about exactly like you did. I might have flipped Alabama and Notre Dame from 3 and 4, but after hearing you talk about it, I'm probably going to take Ty Simpson over CJ Carr, probably going to take the talent of the wide receivers at Bama's over Notre Dame's. Obviously, Notre Dame has the edge in a rushing attack pretty easily, but I think 3 and 4 could be interchangeable there. But
definitely,
anybody else in college football, I think those are the 5 teams for me where it's if there's going to be somebody that gets in the way of Ohio State going back to back, I think it's going to be one of those 5 teams. Is there anybody else, at least from talent perspective, just seeing how good they look, that's out there that you think could give Ohio State fits?
Well, I think I'm just looking at the top 25 and going down. We talked about Georgia. I don't think either of us are worried about Georgia.
Nope.
Neither of us really believe in Stockton. cross them off. Ole Miss, I believe
Nope.
in them a little bit more. They scored a lot on a great Oklahoma defense, but at the end of the day, Ole Miss generally kicks themselves in the ass. We'll see if they even make the playoff. I would say
They
they
will.
probably will this year with their schedule they got left,
I
but
watched
they
2 Ole
also
Miss
lost
games this
North
year,
Dakota
and
last.
I don't trust Lane Kiffin. He does so much dumb shit at different times of the game. I don't trust them. I'm not worried about Ole Miss.
Next, Georgia Tech. Obviously, I
Nope.
think they're a weird, but just from a talent perspective, that doesn't scare me.
Georgia Tech's
Vanderbilt, similar
scrappy.
reasons.
That's what makes them scary.
Yeah,
They're just
I
scrappy.
think that's the scary part of it. They can slow down the game big time. Just
Yeah.
do the old run the ball with Haynes King play, which I feel like we would be able to scheme pretty well against. So that doesn't really worry me. Moving down, Vanderbilt. I mean, interesting. I just don't think their defense is near good enough to keep up with our talent. They probably
Nope.
sneakily put up some points on us, but not enough. BYU,
Nope.
honestly, probably the team I'm least scared of all the teams we've talked about so far. They've just been in too many weird, close games with a lot of Big 12 teams that kind of shit the bed right after playing them. So it's like, I don't really believe in them. Miami, I think this is one of the first interesting ones. They
Maybe.
lost. They lost to, I think, a good Louisville team who we may still sneak into the playoff yet. So we'll give that there. And then next is Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech is honestly maybe the most scary of all the teams I've mentioned. It's probably them or Miami. I mean, I think they can really sling the ball. Their defense is pretty damn good. But at the end of the day, I mean, Texas A&M, or I also feel like I feel like when I'm looking at their loss, they lost at a very hungry Arizona State team. I think with the caveat that Sam Leavitt has been hurt all year makes me feel a little less worried about it. But I think they might be the scariest team mentioned so far. But I feel like the interesting part is you look at the AP top 25. I think anybody in the AP top 25 could make the playoffs still, which is how I don't understand how people do not like the new playoff. Because I mean, there's legitimately probably 30 teams that could still probably make the playoff.
Yeah. I mean, it's I would say like 6 through 12, 7 through 12 is probably as wide open as it was 34 weeks ago. So we'll see a lot shake out here as we get into the last month of the season here. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be fucking awesome. It's going to be really fun to watch as we get through it. And on a final note, to round out our college football recap, Brian Kelly fired. Again, like I said earlier, we talked about this earlier. He was coaching for his job this past weekend. Whenever you go out and you get dog walked the way you did, you got the stadium screaming or chanting, "Fire Kelly." I think a lot of people have been able to sense for a really long time things weren't going well there. When you see him just consistently ripping ass of players on the sideline, when you see him consistently ripping coaches' asses, you see him kind of yelling at reporters in postgame. It's a lot of like point the finger. It's a lot of something is somebody else's fault all the time. And it just kind of has always given off the vibe that he doesn't necessarily have a great presence about him. He doesn't always have the best culture about him. And I think Notre Dame fans, whenever he ultimately left, it was kind of what the fuck? And then shortly followed after, well, all right, he's kind of a jackass the way it is. I'm not completely disappointed that he's gone. We have a new up-and-coming head coach of Marcus Freeman coming in. Let's see what he can do. And clearly that's one of the best things that's probably ever happened to Notre Dame. He's just kind of like you said. I hope he somehow ends up at Penn State. I don't know if they would do that or not. But it would be fun to beat his ass every single year because he just seems kind of like a James Franklin type S, but just a bigger douchebag at the end of the day. You see a lot of former players of his that were at LSU now coming out saying some things. You're hearing a lot of the stories where he had a player that had a brain tumor or something, never called, never visited. I just think he's just kind of a shitty human being that isn't too worried about anything else but himself and winning football games, but he wasn't too good at the winning part. So he's gone. He's out. I think it's better for LSU. Hopefully they can find somebody there. Obviously LSU is one of the, I don't know if you consider them a blue blood, but they are one of the premier programs in the country. Probably the best job that's open right now. And I think that poses the next question. You got jobs like Florida out there, Penn State open out there, LSU, Virginia Tech. Like, at some point, who are these teams going to get? Like, you have a guy, especially like the Penn State one really is kind of baffling. I get it why they did it. But it's also like James Franklin has consistently won 10 games. He's consistently been there at the top of the Big Ten. He just went to the Big Ten championship, almost won that, almost got to the national championship. At some point, like, you're going to be bringing in either a recycled head coach like a James Franklin, like a Brian Kelly, like a Billy Napier, like a Jimbo Fisher, like an Urban Meyer, or you're going to be taking a swing at a young up-and-coming head coach, a guy like a Brian Hartline. At some point, I don't know where some of these schools are going to find their next coach, and I think a lot of them that see, oh, Penn State just opened, oh, Florida just opened, oh, LSU just opened. They're kind of like, oh, shit, if we're going to ever make a change or we're going to bring in a new guy, like, we need to do it now because that's a good job. They're going to go get the next best guy on the market, and the next best guy might not be there for a little bit. I don't know. It's an absolutely insane year of college football, from firings, all the money being thrown around, the teams that are getting upset. And then you also had the Sark news that came out with the whole NFL thing. I think guys like Kurt Signetti are going to be getting an absolute bag thrown at them and basically whatever the hell he wants from whatever school that comes after him. But that's my biggest question through all of this. Who are these schools going to get?
Well, I think my hot take right now, well, first off, I would say LSU is definitely the best available job. I think
Absolutely,
the
without a
probable
doubt.
outcome of what's going to happen is LSU and Florida are both going to make a huge run at Lane Kiffin. I got a feeling he's not going to budge, and I think Ole Miss is going to pay him a nice raise for what he's done this year. But I think my hot take would be this. I think James Franklin might be going south because I think a lot of the reasons you mentioned, Florida feels like kind of the spot where they're looking for a stability guy.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of the Billy Napier experience was kind of a roller coaster ride that no Florida fan was really enjoying. And
no.
I think the thing with Penn State was I think they got bored.
Yeah.
We're losing every big game. We'd rather redo and try again with someone else versus continually doing that. And also,
And as a side note, real quick, I don't know if you saw Brian Hartline as the odds-on favorite to get that job.
The Penn State job?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, for some reason, I don't really see him leaving yet. He hasn't really been in a hurry. I feel like it's kind of got to be a good situational spot, which Penn State may be. But to me, it feels like he's kind of waiting on that perfect, opportunity. And maybe that is Penn State. I'm not rolling that out at all. But I think timing's a big thing for, coaching jobs. And I think if he has any feeling of not being ready, he's like, I'm Brian Hartline. I'm like me staying another year. It's kind of like the Ben Johnson situation in a way where it's like, I am like me staying another year at Ohio State with all these weapons. Is that really, is there really anything that's going to stain my name? Like, and obviously in college, the job has to be open. It's a little different than the NFL where, like every job is good in quotation marks. Like obviously jobs are better than others, just like anything else. But still, like Brian Hartline almost feels like one where if someone gets a whiff of where they might be able to get him, they fire a guy that maybe, keeping him comfortable. Where that is, who knows? But I think that's an interesting thought. But I don't know. I think that's kind of showing how much of a crapshoot the Penn State job is too, because Matt Rule had all that talk about him, but it's like Matt Rule hasn't really won a big game either. I mean, not since Baylor, and Like
Yeah.
Nebraska has a solid enough team where you'd think they'd be upsetting somebody or beating Michigan at home or, not getting walked down by a Minnesota team that ends up getting walked down by Iowa. Like, to me, he doesn't feel like he's good enough for the Penn State job to be quite honest. Like, and so that's why they're kind of in a weird spot where it's like, who's good for Penn State? And really, that's I think they're the biggest wild card job. I think the other jobs are um, are going to be a little bit more straightforward. I'm not as in tune with Oklahoma State and like Virginia Tech situations of how they go about hiring,
They're
but
just
generally,
fucked.
I mean, I think Virginia Tech is kind of in a weird situation where they got passed by Virginia. That job isn't as, pretty as it was in the early 2000s, right after the Beamer Ball days. So to me, it feels like a situation where they're probably a type of team that's taking a swing on one of these young bucks we're talking about. And similarly, Oklahoma State, they just fired their legendary coach, probably deservedly so. They're gonna we think they're gonna reset with another old man? No, they're
No.
probably gonna go young buck coach too. So to
Yeah.
me, that's where those kind of feel that way. What the name is, that I have no idea, but that's where it feels like for that. And then Florida and LSU, they feel like they're going to be the ones taking the swings. And I don't know if James Franklin's a swing, but I think he's a single. And I feel
Yeah.
like in the SEC, you hit a single, it's looking a lot better. I mean, we talk about SEC bias, blah, blah, blah. I mean, there is some, but I do think the SEC has a deep, like, it's also fair to say the SEC has a deeper, like it has the deepest conference. I think that's fair to say
Yep.
because there's 8 to 10 teams that are pretty damn good. I would say the Big Ten is probably 6 or 7.
Yep.
So I don't think it's crazy to say the Big Ten, like the SEC is deeper. And then, you look at that. So it's like, okay, well, if Florida right now, let's say they're the 10th best team in the SEC. If James Franklin gets them to the consistently 4th or 5th best team in the SEC, that's making the playoff here and there. Like maybe winning 10 games or probably more than 9 games in the SEC. Like Florida would be begging for that right now. Begging for that.
Absolutely.
Is
Yeah. They'd
right
take
now
that in
they've
a
had a
heartbeat.
roster to be able to do that. So that's why, to me, honestly, if I'm Florida, I kind of like James Franklin, which is crazy to say with just kind of
Yeah.
all the things we've seen this past year. But I think at the end of the day, like we joke about James Franklin, but I think he is a good recruiter and a good coach and probably a good guy. And that's something that
Mm-hmm.
I think carries a little more weight, and where you're probably not firing this guy and paying a huge buyout if you're taking that swing. Penn State, I think they got embarrassed, got egg on their face, and said, "All right, we're done with this,"
Yeah.
which is
Yep.
fair. But I think at the end of the day, Aller hurt, believing in Aller. Uh, I think they're just game planning. I think that Oregon game took a lot out of them. I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah.
And I
Yep.
think, and then when you go to UCLA and lose in a way like that, where they should have won that game, just candidly about, how that game went down. And then, the Northwestern game where I think it's just you go into Evanston and that almost felt like a kind of an older Big Ten type of game where you go into Evanston, you're kind of sleepwalking, and then all of a sudden you're in a fucking rock fight with Northwestern, who generally has had a good ability to control line of scrimmages. I mean, obviously Penn State too, but when you're getting punched in the mouth and you're not really feeling good about yourself already, like that's where shit like this gets interesting. And so to me, I think it'll be very interesting, but I think there's some moves that we can kind of see where they're gonna go. Um, but yeah, I think it'll be super interesting to see what ultimately shakes out because maybe in Oklahoma State or Virginia Tech are going not necessarily going for the new coordinator guy, but they're getting young buck from maybe a smaller school or maybe an ACC coach makes that jump to go to a more comfortable spot, than in Penn State or whatever, or more of a wild card spot that of a guy we're not really thinking of right now. But so yeah, I think it'll be super interesting to see how this shakes out. I think obviously LSU, like I said, is the most intriguing job. So we'll see how this turns out, and there'll be a lot of money being paid as coaches again this offseason.
Yeah, I think that's the other part. Where they're getting this money for these buyouts to then go be able to go get a new coach and then to be able to go set aside some money for a roster. I don't know. They have some money hidden somewhere. They got big donors that are willing to give it clearly, but it's a wild, wild west. I think is the simplest way to put it when it comes to college football. Whether that's on the field, whether that's coaching, whether that's NIL, whether that's transfer portal, it's as wild as it's ever been, and I'm here for all of it. A lot of narratives, a lot of drama. Before we get into things, just a quick hit on the NFL. 2 notes that I had this week. Chargers bounced back with a 37-10 win. Justin Herbert looked phenomenal. A team that both of us have been pretty well on since week 1. A team that we think can make some noise when you get into the playoffs and potentially fuck around and win a Super Bowl. Good to see them bounce back. I don't think either of our favorite teams are going to be competing with them in the playoffs, so not really anything that we need to necessarily care about. And just kind of in some other AFC North news, the Ravens got a massive, massive, massive win on Sunday over the Bears. I think that was a game. It was one game before Lamar Jackson comes back this Sunday. If they go and fall to like 1-7 or whatever it was, that's a massive hole for them to climb out of. But you go and you get a win. Then you got Lamar coming back this week. You got the Bengals twice coming up. I'm not sure who else they have, but I know they're going to beat the Bengals twice. Probably have some other winnable games. And the Dolphins this week. Like, they have some wins on the schedule, and if you're looking for a nice high-value bet, I would probably go to the books and take the Ravens and win the AFC North. I think it is not out of the realm of things of happening at all. They've got 2 wins. Bengals have 3 wins. The Browns have 2 wins. Steelers have 4 wins. I think the AFC North across the board is pretty fraudulent outside of the Ravens whenever they are completely healthy. So other than that, that's about all I had from the NFL side of things.
Yeah, just to run on top of that, the funny part is you might be too late to be taking the Ravens to win the division.
Yeah, you had to do it before Sunday.
Because the Ravens are now minus 130 to win the AFC North.
Are they really? It was like plus 400 or something, I think I heard on another podcast last week.
Yep. So, I mean, that Bears game was
their season, basically.
They had to win it. On game day, I ended up taking the Ravens just because it screamed a game the Ravens need to win to make the playoffs. That's why they start Tyler Huntley instead of Cooper Rush. I think there was just a level of comfort.
Cooper Rush was just a dumb decision from the jump.
Yeah, and I mean, I just think from a fit standpoint, like, he's had some good backup times. I think they might have got a little too greedy with that. It's like, just run your system. Like, you run the ball well, just stay on that lane, have a more mobile quarterback, to act like you got your little mini Lamar offense that, is obviously not going to work as well, but you got your little mini Lamar in there that can kind of do similar-ish things to at least kind of keep the offense afloat.
I think it's a lot of, like, just don't change your identity either. Like, Cooper Rush, having him at quarterback with how you run your offense completely changes most things that you do, whether that's design QB runs, zone reads, moving the pocket to get the quarterback out of the pocket and throw on the run, where Tyler Huntley just easily slides right into that spot. He can play a Temu version of Lamar pretty easily. He can do a lot of the same things, same schemes, same approaches that you had with Lamar. So I thought it was crazy that they even started Cooper Rush from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where I think it was an overthought situation where it's like, well, Cooper Rush is a better quarterback than Tyler Huntley, and I think that's agreed. Obvious.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But it's sometimes in the NFL you can't overthink things like that. It's like, well, does he fit our scheme? Because scheme, I think it gets overlooked sometimes, and I think even teams overlook it in ways when they see a good enough player where they're like, all right, he's a good backup. We'll upgrade our backup position, and we're good to go. Well, it's not that easy. And then I think twofold, I think even Cooper Rush has taken more blame than maybe he even deserves because the defense was absolutely wrecked with injuries too, and some of those guys are starting to come back. So it's like everything's setting up perfectly for the Ravens to win the division. It's really going to come down to, I'm pretty sure they got 2 with the Steelers. I think the Browns are the only divisional opponent they've played. So, I mean, they can take care of the division pretty easily with all the games they've got left.
Yeah, I would say they'll probably be favored in most of them the rest of the way out. So, all right, let's get into the Cincinnati Bengals. And as I have been this entire time, I'm not going to spend much time on these guys because they do not deserve it. But we all know what happened on Sunday. Absolutely gut-wrenching, most embarrassing loss I have ever seen as a Bengals fan. To lose to the 0-7 Jets as you have a 2-score lead in the fourth quarter with a quarterback of Justin Fields who legitimately just got benched and only ended up playing because Tyrod Taylor got hurt. They didn't have Garrett Wilson. They didn't have Sauce Gardner. Is a fucking embarrassment to be a fan of this fucking franchise. This is an issue that goes deeper than Zac Taylor. Zac Taylor has his issues. He needs to be fired. They need to move on from him and get a better direction. But this falls in the front office. The issue is in the front office. The issue is 100% with the ownership, but there's nothing I can do about that. I can sit here and bitch about the ownership all I want, and nothing's going to change. It's about like bitching about the weather. I can't control it. So what's the point of even bitching about it? But on the flip side, Duke Tobin has to go. The guy is an absolute fraud. Completely terrible at his fucking job. I have on screen here. These are all of the defensive draft picks that the Bengals have taken since 2021. And I throw this up here because it's wild. I see guys like Joe Goodberry and Gridiron Grading on Twitter who are both Bengals accounts. They do a ton of like PFF draft analysis. So whenever they give guys grades and things, they measure like their intangibles, their attributes, and then they also factor in like their production in college. And basically they give each and every one of these guys a grade. I don't know how many times, it's almost weekly, I see them post about guys that they had rated really, really high at the time of the draft that the Bengals ultimately decided to pass on because they went for a guy like a Shamar Stewart who had longer, faster, stronger, whatever the hell it might be, but didn't have the production side of things. When you go up and down this fucking list, it is embarrassing. And the most embarrassing part about it is this is why you have Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins in the fucking building. This is the time you can't afford to miss on this shit, which is why you have the product on the field on the defensive side of the ball that you have right now. Absolute failure by the front office. Absolute failure by Duke Tobin. This is something that needs to be completely taken down to the studs. Duke Tobin has to go. Zac Taylor has to go. Bring somebody in with a different direction. Bring somebody in who actually is going to care a little bit about what these guys do in college, not just about how tall, how strong, and how fast they are. It's an absolute fucking joke. And the craziest part about it is I see the things that Joe Goodberry and Gridiron Grading post. And it's free. It's literally out there free. I look at it every single draft year. And I'm going to admit, there's been times whenever they kind of shit on a Bengals pick because their score didn't match up to where it should be, or it's a little bit lower than what they thought. And I'm kind of just like, oh yeah, what the hell did these guys know? Like, they're just guys on Twitter. But they've been doing this for years now. Like, I don't know how long it's been. Goodberry's probably been doing it for at least 7 or 8 years. And I've seen Gridiron start doing it the last few years. And they have the historical data to back up the shit that they do actually equates to hitting on guys and not drafting busts. I don't know if this organization is so fucking cheap about shit and they don't want to pay scouts. They don't want to bring in resources so you don't miss on so many picks. Literally use the free shit of the people on Twitter. Like, for the love of fucking God. This is embarrassing. If you can't look at this and see that something needs change, and that isn't always the coach. Yes, Zac Taylor needs to go, but this is what he's fucking dealing with. He is not the complete problem. He is part of the problem. And until something changes with their approach to the draft, they are forever going to be at the bottom of the league. They are forever going to be the joke, the laughing stock of the AFC North, of NFL, just nationally. I am so sick and tired of sitting here and watching just bad pick after bad pick after bad pick. They haven't hit on a defensive lineman since I've even been in my fucking 20s. It's embarrassing. And I am done with sitting here trying to defend them, trying to understand the angle that they're trying to take. I am fucking done. I believed for a couple years that, hey, they might be doing some things different here. No. They are the same old fucking Bengals that are ran by the same old broke motherfuckers who want to run this team like they have no cash when they absolutely have cash, and they have cash to spend on players to improve the roster, and they don't always do it. Other than that, that's all I have to say.
I mean, honestly, not really anything to add. I mean, it's kind of been the Bengals.
There's nothing else to talk about. There's nothing else more to talk about. They suck at drafting, and that's why the issue is. That's why they're in where they're in. It's not the fact when you say they're cheap that they don't pay guys. They clearly pay guys, but they don't draft well, which allows you to have sustained success and remain and have cheap rosters. That's how the good teams stay good. It's through the draft. They keep their youth in there. They keep their budgets low. They keep the labor low, essentially. And that's where we're at. There's nothing more to be said about it.
Yeah, and I think the comparisons easily, like, when you look at the draft, it's the same way like corporations look at the college market. Like, I'm gonna try to find the next, new, young, smart, talented person that I could pay as cheap as I possibly can.
Yeah, it's exactly
it's
like
the same
that.
way in the NFL. That's why draft picks are so valuable now and can get you a vet or whatever. Because I'm paying this guy so much. I'd take a fifth for him. How many times do we see things like the bit in the NFL is, all pro or Pro Bowl guy got traded for third rounder? Oh, wow. And things like that.
Yeah.
So it's like, the thing that's it, like, and the thing is like the part that I think is very frustrating for me on the Browns side of things is it's almost the opposite in a way. It's the plan. It's about if you believe in the plan. Like the Bengals in a way don't really feel like they have a plan. It feels like their plan is to keep Joe Burrow and to keep Joe Burrow happy. And then that's kind of the plan.
And hope it works out from there.
Exactly. And I think the part that's irritating me is for the Browns is they kind of had a plan. The plan got blew up by an owner that was like, well, you're letting go of our quarterback, and the whole Baker Mayfield fiasco that we can talk about time and time again and all the details on that. But the moral of that story is it was a divorce, and it was an amicable divorce. Both parties wanted to be done with each other. So what's Jimmy want to do? Well, we got all these fresh picks. Let's trade for a guy who's been a Pro Bowler and been a great quarterback in the past. So you kind of blow it up. You blow up, kind of the plan you had. The Browns had been they still are good at this. It's the only way they've survived this is Andrew Berry has the problem with him has been hitting on draft picks, and that's been the complaint with him, because I would say his percentages are probably lower than a lot of other guys in the league. But the thing he was killing at was manipulating the cap and being able to keep guys.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, it's like, if we get the guy on our team, we can extend this guy, and we can, we can do all these things with signing bonuses and do all this shit to get guys and keep the cap low and carry over money and make our salary cap higher than other teams. And
it's also like, look at what the Lions are doing. They just signed Aiden Hutchinson today, and then I'm sure you saw the tweet out there too of all these guys that they've signed the past few years. It's like they draft a guy, they hit on the pick, and they get him under contract early before the market goes up. They didn't do what the Bengals did, where you could have signed Jamar Chase for far, far, far less, like a year earlier. You knew who Jamar was. but you let him fuck around and go out and have a Triple Crown season. All right, now we've seen enough. Now let's give him the money he deserves. Oh, at fucking $15 million more. Like, it's just stupid. Yep. Organizations do stupid shit, and unfortunately, we just root for two of the dumbest fucking organizations in all of sports that just figure out new ways to just fuck themselves over time and time again. And it's wild because the Lions were like the Bengals and the Browns a few years ago. They were the laughing stock of the league, but they figured it out. Hit on your draft picks, sign them early, get them under contract, keep your core together. I think the Browns have done a really good job of that, like you've said. They've just, the whole Baker Mayfield thing kind of just threw everything off, and the quarterback position has been a shit show ever since. And if you're not good at quarterback in the NFL, you're not good at anything. But if they would have had, the quarterback situation would have been figured out, they would have had a lot of years of consistently making, not only making the playoffs, but making some noise in the playoffs. And that's where the Bengals fall through compared to like what the Browns have done and what the Lions have done. They draft guys like a Jesse Bates. When you finally hit on one, you don't keep them. And then when you do finally hit on one, Jamar, you wait until the last possible second so the market is at the highest fucking value. Then you have to pay top price. You knew that these guys were stars. You knew they were legit players that were going to be part of your future. Get it done early. Joe, they at least got done a little bit early, but for God's sake, you and I could have got that one done.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and the comparison I would say is when you're doing business the same way as Jerry Jones is in 2025, you're probably not doing it right.
And that's how the Bengals do business. It's an old style approach to shit.
It's like, we'll pay him later. Well, it's like, that's not how it works, man.
Not anymore. As soon as
you got to pay him now to pay him cheaper.
I am for, if once you know that he is a dude, he's a player, get him done. Because, yeah, people might be like, oh, that's an overpay now. Well, guess what? In 2 to 3 years, whenever they could potentially be one of the best at their position, and it's like, holy fuck, that's a hell of a deal.
Yeah, well, it's like, it's become a meme now where it's like, and I was seeing it a lot with the Lions situation where it's like the salary cap's not real. It's like, well, the salary cap is real. It's just the real phrase is the cap goes up. And it continually will go up. The NFL, do we think the NFL is a dying sport? We think people are going to stop watching the NFL? I mean, come the fuck on.
Absolutely not. It's only growing. Look at all the games that they're getting overseas. The shit's only going to grow.
Exactly. So it's like, and again, from the Brown side of things, they've been pretty good at proactively paying guys.
They have been. They've kept Denzel Ward. They've kept Myles Garrett. I'm sure I'm missing, like, Nick Chubb. He was in there, too.
Njoku, Joel Bitonio, Nick Chubb.
Like, they had their core that they brought in, and they found ways to manipulate the cap and bring, like, the Browns were doing the right things to have sustained success. They just fucked up at the most important position, which is fucked up this entire period where you had your core, a really good core. You've had a generational defense. If you wouldn't have fucked that piece up, like I said, the Browns not only would have been making the playoffs, but consistently making noise in the playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean, and it's a twofold thing, too, because we're talking about those young, talented people you're paying less money. It's like, well, all this money is coming to pass on the Browns now because you backload it to try to sign free agents so that you can get guys in. Well, now those backloaded contracts are hitting, and you didn't have the picks to get young guys, a.k.a. you can't sign guys in free agency anymore because there's not a lot of money to go around. That's why you're seeing a pretty bad Browns team the last 2 seasons because they hadn't had a first-round pick in 3 years.
Yeah.
So it's like I get fans' frustrations, but to me it's like the writing was on the wall for this. And the fireable offense was trading for Deshaun Watson. And I've said this on here probably 6 times, probably every time I've been on here. The most obvious sign that Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski weren't the masterminds behind the Deshaun Watson trade is the fact they still have jobs. That's the biggest evidence in the entire fucking world because if they would have been gone 2 years ago. So a part of me is like, if Jimmy's thumb is just out of the pie now And he's just like, all right, football guys, I did really fuck up on that. Hand up. You guys take care of business. We lock in. We strap in this year. This year's going to be rough because we're not going to be able to acquire skill positions because it's not really a good idea acquiring receivers or whatever in free agency. Just the hit rates are very low, and you're generally paying a lot for the value. Just plain and simple. The draft, I think there wasn't a lot of receivers that I would view as like team changing in terms of receiver ones. I would say there was probably two: Terrio McMillan and Emeka Egbuka. Matthew Golden we can argue about maybe as well, but at the end of the day, the Browns, instead of drafting a potential offensive tackle, which that is something I understand more. Is there's a sect of Browns fans that are like, well, they should have taken Membo. I think who the Jets ended up taking, who was a tackle instead of Mason Graham, or something like that.
If I was the Browns, I would not be complaining about the draft. The only pick I'd probably be bitching about is the Gabriel pick because that really didn't make sense then, and it really doesn't make sense now. But other than that, the Browns absolutely killed the draft. It goes back to your theory. Just get me good players. I don't care. Like at the end of the day, you're not filling all your needs through the draft, and if you're trying to do that, that's when you reach on guys and you get into the situation that the Bengals are in because they reach a lot in the draft. If you just go out and get me good players and we'll fill it in from there, that's when you hit on picks. That's when you get difference makers, and that's when you get dudes.
And then that's what opens you up when, like this next year, the Browns' moves this past year also set them up for the next draft because now it's like, okay, well, it's looking like we're going to need a quarterback because bullet point one, Dillon Gabriel's ass. Not good.
Could have told you that the day they took him.
And I was in agreement, and then there was a coping period where I was trying to believe.
Well, you're a fan. You have to.
But
I do the same shit with the Bengals. I told myself maybe this defense will be different. But deep down inside, I knew nothing was going to change.
Right. So I think the Dillon Gabriel pick, it almost felt like a luxury pick of a guy that's like, all right, we like this guy. At worst, he's going to be a good backup, which I would agree. He's going to be a good backup, but the worst case scenario has happened. He's going to be a good backup. He's not worth, starting every single week the rest of the year.
Is he still going to continue to start?
I got a feeling they'll run him out there another game, and it'll be the Jets after the bye. So that'll probably be unfortunate because that'll probably be a win, or they'll play well. And then there'll be the Ravens game the week after that may shine the light that just gives Shedeur some run
out there. Yeah.
So
you're going to see Shedeur at some point. We talked about this at the beginning of the year. We talked about this at the beginning of the year. Like when you're 3-11 or whatever it is at the end of the year, and it's like, all right, we're not getting the playoffs, clearly. All right, let's go sell some more tickets and bring in some more money here to end the season. Shedeur, get that watch out. It's time.
Well, and the funny part, it's not even just about money too, because I think he has a higher ceiling than Dillon Gabriel.
He's better than
Is
Dillon Gabriel.
Is he going to be the savior of the Browns? Probably not, but he's worth throwing out there to give him a fucking shot.
Just watch them throw a football. Watch them throw a football. Like, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to see that Shedeur Sanders is a better at purely just throwing a football than Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel, I'm not even sure if he can throw it further than 10 yards.
Well, he really hasn't this year, so I'm not sure either.
Shocker. You're talking about the same guy who had the least amount of air yards out of all 136 FBS football quarterbacks last year.
And that was quite literally what I was about to say. The biggest stat that was basically like Dillon Gabriel, fraud, was he had the lowest ADOT last year, average depth of target. And he played for Oregon.
He's a screen merchant.
And I
Oregon
understand
had athletes on the edge.
It also means throwing the ball downfield, not just screens. It equals out.
And his defense, he did kill Denzel Burke a few times in that first game. But that was also whenever Jim Knowles was a complete brain dead fuck and said, "Oh, you know what? We're just going to rush 2 this time."
Yeah. But anyway, don't want to, harped on that plenty already. But basically, I say that to say I think there is like Eileen being patient with the team or the organization we've got right now. I know that's not what Browns fans want to hear. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of people that would disagree with me. But to me, this team does not have offensive weapons. So the thing that's really been happening is that there's been a huge fire Kevin Stefanski movement. There's not a lot of offensive weapons for him. So if you're saying fire Kevin Stefanski, you better be saying fire Andrew Berry. That's really my only comments on firing at all is it. I'm not going to – I've come to terms with they may potentially be fired. And my argument to that is, well, if you fire one, you better fire both. Start
Is
over.
2025 the year of firing people? I think it is the year of firing people. College football.
It surely is in college. Well, the NFL, there's a lot of bad teams, so maybe.
We're not far enough into it yet. It's coming. Well, Bengals fans are screaming, fire the coach, fire the GM. Browns fans are screaming, fire the coach, fire the GM. You've seen a record amount of college football teams, at least on the high end, have coaches to replace that they're getting rid of. 2025 is the year of firing, just so it's not me and you next.
Yeah, we'll see. And I guess my last point, I want to talk about Myles a little bit. I think sometimes frustration on the sidelines gets overblown. To me, that's like this guy still cares and wants to win. I think the contract says he wants to win here. He's made that decision that he wants to win here. And sure, they aren't on the schedule that he's going to want to be at right now. I'm not going to argue with that at all. But the plan that they've set forth with him, like if that plan was we're going to sign Joe Flacco and he's going to solve our problems and he's mad about that, then Myles Garrett may not be as smart of a man as I previously thought.
Joe Flacco's not coming to save you.
To me, it sounds like there's a bigger plan at play. They're like, hey, we got 2 first-round picks next year. If we got to move up, we can now. And if we don't need to move up, which is probably partially why we nuked the offense and we're playing a lot of players that would essentially this entire offense would benefit greatly from having a number 1 receiver on it. So that's why the thought process the rest of this offseason is Carnell Tate or Jordan Tyson or Mekhi Lemon or Chris Bell. You are a Cleveland Brown.
Carnell Tate.
I would argue give me 2. But yeah, I think Carnell's my 1 now. I've removed my thoughts of trying to think I was biased. I definitely am biased, but he is just so fucking good too. So he's the guy I want, but essentially the other 3, if we get one and Carnell's gone or we get one instead, I ain't going to be pissed off about it. It is what it is. Give me a quarterback, give me a receiver, draft pretty much all offensive players, and we're cooking.
That's what you got. You guys really just need a quarterback and a receiver. Like, you guys haven't had anything. Like, Baker was fine. You didn't really have the receiver side of it. I know you had, like, Jarvis was solid. The whole OBJ thing was at the tail end of his career. He was a shell of himself at that point. But you need a quarterback and you need a receiver. Like, go get your Joe Burrow, go get your Jamar Chase. And it's amazing how fast shit changes. The Bengals were a 2-win team and went to like a fucking 13-win team in a matter of 2 years, solely off 2 guys. So it can definitely be done.
I'm trying to say the Browns, like the NFL in itself, is a quick turnaround league. The Washington Commanders won like 3 games and then won 12 the next year. They didn't even have a good defense. So it's like
they went to the NFC Championship.
Right. So, it's like that's just what a quarterback can do there. We have a great defense. And really all it takes is, there's some offensive line work that needs done. That's true too. But, that could be as simple as someone's son just got fired in Tennessee. Bring him home. But anyhow,
don't want him.
I think I do. Bring him back. He's got a relationship with Kevin Stefanski. Our line ain't good right now. Let's run back the olden days. I don't think the O-line problems are all him. I think there's some talent problems in Tennessee too. And now he's just a lame duck coach. So Yeah, I mean, I was not a fan of the Brian Callahan hire. So
I
yeah,
knew that was fucked the
just
second they hired him. Was this his first year there?
second.
Second year? Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I as soon as I heard they hired him, like he didn't even call plays for he didn't even call
Yeah,
plays for the
we talked about
Bengals.
this a couple weeks ago. Like, this guy didn't call plays, and we're really thinking this guy's like solving everything. Like that just doesn't
I
even make sense.
That's what the Bengals did with Zac Taylor. Zac Taylor never called plays. He was a quarterback coach for the Rams. They hired him. The Rams were just really good at that time. It was like 2017, 2018 time frame when
The McVay days is what we'll call those.
yeah, it was a McVay merchant, and I think it was around the time that they lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl, like 14-3. But like it was that year that the Chiefs and the Rams played down in Mexico. The score was like 59-56, and it was probably the best NFL game that's ever been played. I think like that was the year the Rams offense was absolutely cooking, and they were just got very horny over a guy that was a quarterback coach for an offense that looked really good.
Yeah, and I mean, arguably, like I think I would agree he should be fired now. But I mean, I think there's like he's clearly been successful there. Like there's been success. Like I don't think he's no dum dum, but I think the further you get away from the tree, like that's a direct McVay descendant. When you got a McVay descendant, But
I also have to like Zac Taylor pisses me off a lot, but I do have to give him credit. Like he's consistently had a top offense in the NFL. Like he's always been known to start really slow, which we've talked about this. They do a lot of low percentage things that take a little bit of time to get going, but he typically, like you've seen it even with Flacco, like now that Flacco's in, the offense looks pretty similar to what it did with Burrow. And my biggest thing with him is that he could never really run the ball. And that in turn really put Burrow at chance of getting sacked and getting hit. And so Flacco's been in Cincinnati for 3 games now. He's only been sacked 4 times. So they've also been running the ball exceptionally better. Like I want to say, I don't know what the stats are, but I bet they probably about doubled their running numbers over the past 3 games than what they were even before then. And then you magically just have your sack numbers go down. Throw into that, Flacco gets the ball out really, really quick, which helps, which I hope Burrow is taking note of that and realizes he's going to have to probably start to play like that if he wants to stick around as long as he hopes to. But Zac Taylor is not the problem. He's just part of the problem in Cincinnati. And I still think it's time to move on. I think they need new direction. I think they need a mentality of like a physical type, give me like a Dan Campbell, Mike Vrabel type mindset, and hire a good, smart OC. It doesn't take any rocket scientist when you have the talent and the weapons that the Bengals do, and let's go from there. But definitely goes a lot further beyond Zac Taylor, that's for sure. All right, Norm, what do you say we get on to the Ohio State?
Let's do it. Let's start getting positive again.
Like I said at the beginning of the show, this is basically the only thing that keeps us happy over the course of a week. You watch Ohio State on Saturday and life is complete. They do everything, 99.9% of things, very well. And then you turn on the games on Sunday and you wonder why the hell you even watch the Browns or the Bengals. So, Ohio State, big one at home, or so we thought coming into the year, against Penn State. I still think that this is a game to make note of. I think that this is a Penn State team that was a drive away from going to the national championship last year. Sure, they don't have a dual Carter. Sure, they don't have Tyler Warren. Sure, they don't have Drew Aller. Sure, they don't have their head coach. But the core of this roster still was right there, sniffing out the door to go to a national championship. Honestly, probably should have beaten Notre Dame in that bowl game. But things have gone south. Things have gone sideways this year. It's clearly not the season that they were hoping for. I don't know. I think that I said that this instantly turns into their Super Bowl. Like this is the one game that they have everything. They're going to throw everything at you in this game. So for me, from Ohio State's perspective, I want to see that focus and I want to see a maturity of a team that you're coming off a bye. It's a team that you should dog walk. You're favored by like 20.5. Don't sleepwalk through this one and let them hang around. Come out, show me that you are for real about being legit and going back to back and doing all the things that we talk about. And you're Ohio State. This is just what we do. We don't look past teams. We play the team on the schedule that given week. We beat the shit out of you, and we move on.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for this week is, like, we got to view Penn State as a team that was, like, a play away from probably being undefeated, which is crazy to say for a team that's below 500 now.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
A bounce goes their way in the Oregon game. They ain't losing to UCLA. They ain't losing to Northwestern. And they're not losing to Iowa. Barring Aller being hurt, which maybe they still win these games. Because there's just a lack of buy-in, clearly. And now that you can go play the defending national champions, you're the joke of the Big Ten right now. What could make your season beating Ohio State? So it's exactly what you said. This is the Super Bowl. And
it's Michigan
at the end of
last
the day,
year.
That's right. And the thing is, too, is like that's kind of how everybody is on the schedule. But the problems are the ones that have talent. And Penn State still has a lot of talent. Like, there's going to be a lot of dudes that are in the NFL that are on this team still.
Yep.
So at the end of the day, there's still plenty of work to be done. And, we'll get to it. This team's stepped up to every challenge they've had this year so far. But honestly, I do think this is the toughest one yet, because week one at home against Texas, A, you're at home. B, it's easy to get, fired up and locked in for the preseason 1 and 2 game. This game, it's easy to sleep through. I know it's Penn State, so there should be a level that, hey, this is still Penn State. But that could easily be missed in this. So, to me, I do think it's a potential drop game, and I think this is the game that shows what this team's about this season. And I don't even care if this win's ugly. If they just get the win, to me, it's like, all right, maybe it's even a slow start. Maybe we're down early and come back and win. I think this is a game where it's like, okay, we handled them. Like a blowout doesn't really tell me anything. It just shows me Penn State quit, whatever, another win, we'll take it, we'll move on. But this game's close. Like that's when that Michigan game, that game was close, and people started getting scared. We and plays weren't being made anymore, and Michigan started doing some bully ball. Which, if you're to say Penn State's best players on offense, probably the running backs.
Running backs, yep.
So it's like, I mean, there's a level of that could play a role here, and they're going to try to. They're going to try to do that because that's the only way they're going to be able to beat you is bully ball. So, to me, I think if this game's 24-14, 21-20, 24-21, whatever, don't care. Win the game. Doesn't even have to be handily. This is just winning a football game this week, and I think that's the way they got to view it. And I think if they view it as that, I think it'll be more. But at the end of the day, lock in and, take care of business.
Absolutely. I think it's a measuring stick for like the maturity of this team and the focus of this team. I think that I don't think they're going to look past Penn State, though. I really don't think that they're going to. I think that Ryan Day has complete 100% buy-in of this team, especially with how last year ended, how they've been navigating this year. And I think that they 100% support and trust everything that Ryan Day has been saying. And I listened to his press conference the other day. He is saying the exact same things that we are saying right now. Like, this is no joke. This is still a team that went out and did all these things a year ago. And the flip side of that, I think there's a little something to play here for. Jim Knowles was a little shitty about the way that he went about leaving last year. There was some drama there. I don't know the full story. We probably never will know the full story. But it's pretty obvious he was kind of weird and a little bit of a dick with the way that he left. And I think that alone is going to be enough motivation for Ohio State to get up for this game and not look past them. I think it's still Penn State, a rival at the end of the day. But I mean, if the opportunity presents it, and Ryan Day just says, let's just fucking let it loose. Like, let's just drop 40, 50 on Jim Knowles' head just to say one last fuck you for the way he handled everything. He's asking for a contract right in the middle of a playoff run. Kind of like wasn't talking to people after the national championship game, that type of thing. Now Ryan Day has been petty before. He's definitely has a side to him that can be a little bit petty and want to get back at somebody. If he can, do you think he will?
I think it almost he might do it in an even more disrespectful way where it's like a lion don't concern himself with the sheep type of situation. I think Brian Day is like this is gonna be like an oxymoron, but like a zen. He's like zen crazy right now. As in like I'm still locked in. I don't give a fuck about you. To win this game, we're just gonna take care of the ball. Like whether that's ball control, running the ball shit ton, or whether it's like, that could be. And I mean, we have Jeremiah Smith and Cardinal Tate. That could just as easily be slinging the ball around too. But I don't think it's necessarily going to be a let's stomp on them. Like I think if they're up, 3 scores with 7 minutes left in the game, I think there's not 7, maybe like 4 or 5 minutes left in the game. I think there's a higher chance that starters are pulled than running up the score, because I think that's more disrespectful of being like, yeah, we don't concern ourselves with you. You guys are not serious anymore. You went to a non-serious team.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that might be the level of petty it gets to. Like
Ohio State's
up 24. Ohio State's up 31-7 in the fourth quarter, and we're seeing Lincoln Kineholds back there, and we're seeing Isaiah West running a whole series, which honestly probably fine with, and then you're seeing all the young receivers in there, and you're seeing Jeremiah and Carnell and Julian all laughing on the sideline, being like, yeah, we're done for the day.
Yep.
And that's what I want to see. Like I don't care if we score 50 points. I think it would be just as cool to win this game 31-0 and not have the starters play the whole fourth quarter.
No, I now that you say that, I really, really, really like that take, actually. I could definitely see that being his approach, where I'm not going to worry about you. Like, you left for the shittier team. You made the bed that you are now laying in. And I'm going to come in, beat you, shake your hand, and leave, because we're worried about winning championships. You're worried about being petty and trying to go get an extra bag and go to a rival.
You're worried about keeping your job.
Right. I don't know if he's even going to do that at this point. But I could definitely see this being a little bit like a Wisconsin game, where it was kind of similar. Like Ohio State completely dominated from start. Start to finish. We're not going to hang a crazy number on you. Like, it's not going to be like 63-7 or anything. Like, it's just going to be, we're going to go down, we're going to score, we're going to stop you. Then we're going to go down, we're going to score again, and then we're going to stop you. And then we're going to go down, and we're going to score again. We're going to stop you. And it's not going to be like left hook, right hook. Like, it's going to be slow, methodical, just controlling the game. And then at the end of it, look up and, we just still dropped 34 points on you. We won 34-0 and beat the absolute shit out of you. But we did it in a quiet way, and we're moving on with our season with aspirations of winning it again.
Yeah. And the funny part is, too, like, it's funny how the same exact situation is kind of like utilized differently. Because I think there's a level of like the Wisconsin one was like, yeah, we're not going to run it up on Fickle. He's a Ohio State guy. That's our dude over there still. That could be, once Patricia leaves, that could be his replacement. We don't want to get a put that taste in his mouth like that. That guy could be coming home, mate.
Yep.
And it's funny that we're talking about Penn State, same exact situation. We're like, yeah, they're going to do the same thing, and it's going to be so fucking disrespectful.
I could definitely see it. On a final note, Ohio State's defense has obviously been insane, allowing just 217 yards per game this year. Penn State's offense ranks 99th. It was bad with Drew Waller. It's gotten worse with Ethan Grunkmeyer. So I think that, of all things, is the most disrespectful. Blank them. Show them, hey, you left as a DC, but this is what we got to replace you. I think that, of anything. Nobody cares. I mean, scoring points on them is one thing, but just being like, yeah, our guy that replaced you just blanked the fuck out of
It's
you.
way better.
Yep. Not even close. Not even close. Anything else on Ohio State's front? I know with the bye week, there's not a ton of topics, but you want to get on to your picks?
Let's run it.
I do have a question, Norm. You're sitting at 19-32 this week. I know we missed a couple weeks with me moving, missed a couple shows and whatnot. Ohio State, your favorite team, is 6-0-1, the only team in college football that is undefeated against the spread. You have not taken them once.
Well, let's be nice here. Not officially. The Texas
Or did
game
you?
we talked about, and I ended up making the under as the official pick there.
Okay, yeah, that was a better pick, I would say.
I would say it's mostly I'm trying to focus on some big fish matchups, and honestly, Ohio State hasn't been one in a little while. And this Penn State would have been one, honestly. If we want, let's put one on the books. I think Ohio State keeps.
Is that the extra one you were telling me about before the show?
Nope. There's another one. We're in the
Before we get
buddy.
into it, I think it's pretty crazy too that there's a narrative out there that Ohio State hasn't played anybody in the competition that they've played is horrible and whatnot. Them and Indiana are the only two teams in college football that have 5 wins against teams with winning records. Funny how that works, but we'll just let it play out. Just keep telling us that we suck. We haven't played anybody. We'll see you in the playoffs. All right, getting into it. Norm's first pick of the week. Baltimore Ravens, 7.5-point favorites on the road at the horrible Miami Dolphins, who just got a really big win against the Falcons. But typically, this is how it goes. You get a big win, you're probably going to have a letdown, and the Dolphins suck. Lamar Jackson's back. They're getting guys back on their defense. The Ravens are primed, coming off a big win in Chicago, ready to roll. Talk us through it, Norm.
I think you hit it all fully. This Ravens team, they're looking for wins. They're looking to do it in style. They're going to be focused early and often. This is Lamar's first game back. I think there was a concerted effort of like, hey, instead of having him come for a short week and play on Thursday night, we're going to get rest. We're going to win this fucking game. And then we're going to have Lamar fresh on Thursday night. He's going to dominate, and then he's going to get extra rest for the week following that. So to me, this is just all the signs. This feels a lot like that Bills game last week that ended up being an absolute fucking banger. The Ravens murder. I was watching that Bills game last week, and I was like, should have alted to 20. This feels like one alt in the 20. Won't be doing that on this one either, but Ravens 7.5 feels very easy, but I'm not going to be greedy here. We're going to take the 7.5. We're not going to alt it.
Love it. Like it. Put it in. Next one, Vandy on the road at Texas, -2.5. Longhorns coming off a big comeback win against Mississippi State on the road. They were down as much as 38-21, came back, tied it at 38-38, ended up winning in overtime right in Brandon Walker's face in the corner of the end zone to win 45-38. Arch Manning kind of had a pretty good game last game. I think he had 350, 400 yards, 3 or 4 touchdowns last week. Maybe it's the time for he's going to start hitting his rhythm a little bit. I think the biggest thing that surprised me the most is Texas's defense has been pretty solid up until this point, and then they go and allow 38 points against Mississippi State, which was a little surprising. The flip side of this, Diego Pavia said that he thinks that he deserves to be the Heisman winner. And this dude, the last 3 games, has thrown for 198 yards, 160 yards, 129 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions over that span. Diego Pavia has a big name. Vandy keeps winning. I think the team around him is pretty good. But I don't think that he is the level of player or playing at the level that he wants people to think right now. I like Texas as well, but tell me why you took the 2.5 for the Longhorns.
Yeah, I mean, last week, Texas, obviously the scare of Mississippi State. To me, the comeback almost shows that Texas may have finally been scared straight, that your season is done with 3 losses. You don't got enough big wins on that yet. So, and well, especially if the third loss coming to Mississippi State. I do think there's a scenario where we see a 3-loss Texas team with the schedule they have left still making the playoff. But I'll get to that after. But I think Texas Texas offensively, there looks to be a little bit more clicking there. Arch isn't locked in to play this week. I foresee the line moving a little bit if he's cleared. Honestly, I don't think it matters. Vandy hasn't been great on the road, and when you look at Vandy, they've really played. Let's check the. I believe they've only played one. Okay, they played two true road games this year, and one was to South Carolina when Lenore Sellers got hurt in the first quarter, and the other was Alabama where they were beat by 2 scores. So a lot of they've had a little bit of home kicking going on. There's no problem with winning at home, but it's not playing in Austin, and I think Texas is locked in. I think this is a big game for them. It's similar to. I'm ready to get burned again because it's similar to the LSU situation.
Yeah.
The difference was that one was on the road. I think Texas here, we're looking at this and we're like, oh, obviously Texas was going to beat Vandy. And I think that's where we're going to sit Saturday afternoon when this game's over. So give me Texas to cover the 2.5.
Love it. Next one, Oklahoma on the road at Tennessee. Tennessee favored by 3 points. Oklahoma lost a shootout, I guess you could say, against Ole Miss this past weekend. John Mateer, since his injury, broke his hand. Since he's came back, he's looked pretty rough up until this point. Tennessee, on the flip side, I think that they've won some games, but there's a narrative out there as well, similar to Ohio State. Who have they played? So I would say this game, if I was going to pick, I view both these teams as being pretty even amongst the two, which is why I think you see the -3 with Tennessee being the home team. Typically, a home team gets 3 points. But walk me through Tennessee.
Yeah, you hit a lot of the points. I think the main one, honestly, is John Mateer. I think if we're playing this game with a healthy John Mateer, I'm probably doing the opposite. But I think the difference would be, I think this line will also be different. Tennessee, I mean, they've been solid. I mean, Joey Aguilar has been pretty damn good in my opinion this year. Tennessee obviously has that game against Georgia that's really kicking them in the ass at this point, but they've been solid. Oklahoma, I think I thought they were an elite defense. I know Ole Miss has a good offense, but there's just a game where they couldn't get any stops. Like it felt like Ole Miss should have scored even more points than they scored. So to me, this one feels like they're going on the road. They're going to Knoxville. They're going to be yelling Rocky Top. They take this one over. Night game, Knoxville. Give me the Vols -3.
Love it. Next one, USC, 6.5 point favorites on the road going into Lincoln, taking on Nebraska. Why are you taking the Trojans?
I think this one's interesting with it being in Lincoln, but I think this one's going to come down to, like, this isn't your typical USC going to play a Big Ten team. This is not as far of a travel for them. I look at their 2 losses. They're at Notre Dame, at Illinois, both games that I thought USC played pretty well in. Just couldn't quite get the defense they needed. I think when I'm looking at Notre Dame and I'm looking at Illinois and I'm comparing to the Nebraska, I'm seeing 2 better offenses than Nebraska. I've also seen Nebraska struggle against teams from a defensive standpoint. They're allowing 30 to Michigan, 27 to Michigan State, 31 to Maryland, only 24 to Minnesota, but that was a loss on the road where Minnesota controlled time possession. And then they're allowing 21 to Northwestern. To me, this is a USC game where they're showing that they're USC. Their offense has the weapons of USC, and they go in to Lincoln. They take care of business. This feels like a game they win by 10. I'm not a believer in Nebraska. I'm tired of kind of thinking Nebraska might be good. I'm off that. I think USC has an elite offense. If they get any semblance of defense, I think this is a blowout. Unfortunately, I don't foresee that, so I think this game will be a little close going through, but, I'm taking Maeva and his weapons over Raiola and his. So give me USC -6.5.
Absolutely. I'm taking those weapons at USC over Nebraska's any day of the week as well. Next one, USC, 9.5 point dogs on the road at Utah. Utah's been struggling a little bit as of late. UC is sneakily just continuing to win. Sorsby's looked pretty solid for the most part for the Bearcats this year. For them to be getting 9.5 points now that I sit here and look at this and think of it, seems pretty wild just considering Utah and kind of the struggles that we've seen from them up until this point this year. Other thing you also have to factor is a lot of times when you see teams go from the east to the west like this, you typically see a letdown, but at the end of the day, it's still basically keeping this game within single digits, which I think UC is completely capable of doing. And like I said, they're hot right now. I don't think enough people are talking about them, but why are you riding the Bearcats?
Yeah, I think the interesting point is my first take is I think it's easier traveling west than east.
For sure.
10 o'clock is easier to deal with, where it's 7 o'clock there versus, let's say Utah's coming for a noon kick in, anywhere. Like that's 9 a.m. for them on the East Coast. Like that's just a tougher situation to go. Anyhow, I think this line's so conflated. Utah just absolutely beat the shit out of Colorado last week. Colorado, they're falling off. They were a little scrappy there for a little bit, but I think they're kind of going back to the Colorado ways for the rest of the season, it feels like. Again, I think another reason why this line's a little inflated is Utah's wins. They generally win big. Colorado 53-7, Arizona State 42-10, West Virginia 48-14, and then non-conference. But to me, I think the main point is this. The two best teams they played, because the Arizona State team was a Sam Leavitt-less team, was Texas Tech and BYU. They lose both of those games outright, one at home, one on the road. I'm not saying Cincinnati's Texas Tech or maybe even BYU, but I think they're in the upper echelon of the Big 12. Not saying Utah's not either, but I think that means this is going to be a very close game. This is going to be a really good game. One I'm staying up for the 10 o'clock kick. Give me the Bearcats plus 9.5. I believe in Sorsby. He's been playing super well, especially of late. I feel like I've been starting to see some draft buzz on Sorsby. So to me, Cincinnati lose first game, a fake home game that was in Arrowhead against Nebraska, kind of a weird leadoff game to have. A lot of chances to win that game, kept her close, lose that. Ever since then, feel like they've been pretty dialed in. Go to Kansas when they'd been playing well earlier this year. Go and beat them. Beat a pretty solid Iowa State team at home. Destroy Baylor at home last week. Who Baylor's another one of those teams that can kind of get you. So for me, they go to Utah. This is going to be a great game, like I said, but this game's going to be a close game. Cincinnati covers 9.5. And if you're interested in staying up that late, this might be a sprinkle money line Cincinnati, but I'll take the 9.5.
If you're up and you're drinking and you're up late, take the money line. Ride the Ohio team.
It's one where you might accidentally press the plus money line instead of the plus spread, which to me I think it's something. Depending on where the balance is at Saturday night, we might be sprinkling both.
Ooh, let's see where we end up. Next one, Vikings, who have been struggling mightily as of late. Got absolutely embarrassed last week on Thursday Night Football against the Chargers. Traveling to Detroit to take on the Lions, who are favored by 8.5 points. That feels very, 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 very low, which is why I am guessing you are taking it.
Exactly. J.J. McCarthy, first game back. Think there's a reason they've been kind of waiting, whether that's, he hasn't been progressing from an injury standpoint. They're happy with what Carson's doing. Whatever it is, to me, that doesn't give me a lot of confidence that J.J. is going to come in, firing. And then two, the Lions are like the Bills. When the Lions and Bills, when they win games, they blow teams out. And this feels like another game where I'm not saying they're blowing them out like the Bills, but it feels like a game the Lions are ending up. They're up 17, and so Vikings get a score late to make it 10, or the Vikings or the Lions end up winning this by 10 or have a 10-point lead the whole time, or whatever it ends up being. To me, this feels like the Lions win this by 2 scores. That's 8.5. Give me the Lions minus 8.5.
Love it. I'm with that one as well. Next one, Chiefs at Bills, the classic matchup that we've seen through the years between Mahomes and Allen. Taking the over. Why are you taking the points?
You're talking about that Sunday night game earlier, Niners, Rams, back and forth, just offenses humming and scoring. To me, this feels like a game. The Chiefs are starting to get healthy. The offense has been following suit with that. They've been playing, pretty rock solid on the offensive side of the ball. Took them a half on Monday night, but, they end up, taking care of business, kind of controlling. Didn't really feel like they were, pushing it as much as they probably could have. Anyhow, Bills, similar thing. They go into Carolina, destroy them. Looking at them, they had two kind of stinker games in a row. But to me, when the Bills' offense is humming, they're scoring 30 points, no matter who they're playing. So to me, this kind of feels like a game that's going to end up being, a 34-30 or 31-28 or something like that, which gets us to that number fairly easily. I think we're going to have an electric game of the week at 4:25 this week, and I'll be tuned in for this one as well. But give me the points. Give me over. It's 2.5.
Love it. I think you also said that you're going to take Ohio State minus 20.5 as well at home against Penn State. Add that to the list. And did you say you had one more as well?
No, that's initially I didn't see the Chiefs Bills one, so that was the one I was initially going to add. But we are definitely adding the Buckeyes. I may be putting my stink on them, but I'm going to take the 20.5. The more I think about it, the more it feels like a game where it's like the Wisconsin game where they kind of just take care of business. They may not be covering 20 in the first half, or they may be up 7 at half, but it's a game where I think they kind of turn it up second half, get the scores, and end up winning the game. Maybe a 24-0, or maybe like pretty much the Wisconsin game, or maybe we're seeing this one and it ends up being like a 38-14 or 38-7 or something like that. All these are getting to places where they're covering the 20.5. So to me, I think we'll know fast in this one. If Penn State's moving the ball pretty well with the run game, maybe this one's not going. But to me, it feels like this defense will be ready to slow down that run game, and the offense will be primed to score. So add the Buckeyes to the sheet, add them to the list. Honestly, this week, not a lot of great games overall. As I was scrolling through the board, I think there's another interesting game I want to call out. I don't honestly know what I would be betting on it. I kind of have an idea, but I'm not going to put it on the record. But because it's what I'll call my Group of 5 playoff preview, we got Navy going to North Texas this week. Navy's still undefeated at 7-0. They play North Texas, who's 7-1. Last week we saw an absolute electric one with Memphis upsetting South Florida, traveling into town after they had just lost to UAB and a fired coach the week prior. So to me, that tells me that Group of 5 spot is still wide open, and both of these teams are very capable of getting there. I think the winner of this has honestly a very good shot. I seen Navy is just sitting right outside that top 25 poll at 26. So this one's going to be an electric one. I don't have one right now. I think right now I'd lean Navy, but we'll stay away from it for now. But just a call out game to watch. I know it's at noon with some other big games, but if we're seeing blowouts in the Ohio State game or blowouts in the Vandy Texas game, that Navy North Texas game feels like it's going to be an electric one.
I heard somebody say the other day that Mestamaker, that's a quarterback for North Texas, said, I'll put a lot of money that he's at Indiana next year, because that dude's just been putting up really, really good stats all year. And I heard that, and I was like, oh, hell yeah, I could definitely see that too. Other than that, I mean, we got Ohio State basketball starting on Monday. I'm sure we'll get into a lot more of that type of stuff the further we get into this. Got a big one with Notre Dame coming up, I think, on November 16th. Other than that, the first few weeks of the season, playing at seemingly nobody in a bunch of mid-major, low-major schools. So get you some more Buckeye content as the further we get into the season. On another note, The Blue Jays won tonight 6-1 to get the series to 3-2. So Blue Jays in the driver's seat. Game 6 is on Friday. I have a feeling this one is probably going to go to Game 7 with Yamamoto on the mound. But other than that, I'm here for all of it. I think it's going to be a pretty eventful weekend of sports again, potentially a Game 7 of the World Series. You got the NFL, you got college football. Ohio State's playing Penn State. You got Ohio State opening up on Monday night. Life is good right now, and we're here for all of it. Other than that, Norm, you got anything else before we get on out of here?
You forgot a major thing, and the Miami Heat play a fast-paced offense now and are scoring a lot of points.
Getting up and down a little bit.
That's something I'm excited about. Scoring 144 last night. I believe they're the number one pace offense and one of the best offensively efficient teams so far this year. So, if you got some sneaky action, I saw the win total for the Heat was 37.5 coming into the year. So you might be still getting some sneaky playoff odds on them for a future pick for those that like the futures.
Hell yeah. I'm with it. Other than that, thank you everybody for tuning in. If you could please like, subscribe, retweet, follow, do all the things that help make us grow, we would greatly appreciate it. Other than that, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Middle Ground out.